items. Income generated from this fund is used to cover costs like mowing lawns, road repair, and other essential upkeep after all of the remaining burial plots have been sold.
So, people with plots at Beaver Cemetery can be assured that there are sufficient funds to maintain the cemetery in the future?
Yes. At Beaver Cemetery, we have a multi-million-dollar perpetual care fund. A third-party trustee, a fiduciary, is responsible for managing the fund. Everything your family has at Beaver Cemetery will be protected by our perpetual care fund.
Folks, you can learn more at beavercemetery.net.
Scott Tady here, coming at you from the Fire Transportation Group studios. One of our favorite times of the month. We have Dale Reckless of MRS Physical Therapy. I know it's about to get flexible up in here. That's the only warning I have today. You're going to talk about flexibility. I do already have one listener who has a question for you. We can get into that whenever you're ready. But
Love it. Yeah.
I know you're all set up. We're also streaming on our Facebook page, WBVP, WMBA, if you want to see Dale. He's got some implements of destruction with him. It looks like am I going to be on the table pretty soon? I can't wait to find out.
I think you're going to be on the table at some point here today, Scott. So we have some good demos to show today. So thank you all for having me again. I appreciate it. Today we're going to be talking about flexibility overall, stretching to be specific. But before we get into it, I have to announce an exciting announcement that MRS Physical Therapy on the Cranberry Eagle was voted Best Physical Therapy for 2026.
Congratulations.
So we got the gold medal. Woohoo! We got the gold award for Best Physical Therapy at MRS Physical Therapy as nominated through the Cranberry Eagle. So we're pretty proud of that because we work hard to take care of our patients, and those are our patients in our community that voted us Best Physical Therapy. So we're pretty happy about that award.
You have offices in Cranberry and in Bridgewater in New York County as well at the Stone Point Landing building.
That's right. We have two offices. We have the office in Bridgewater, which is right in Stone Point Landing. And then we have the office in Cranberry, right on Route 19, next to North Park Lounge.
Okay, and one of the things you talk about with people is how to be flexible, how to be more limber, how to feel better. And that's one of the themes we're going to be getting into today.
So what we're going to talk about today, what we do as physical therapy at MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy is we work on, if someone comes in with a diagnosis, we work on decreasing their inflammation. We work on improving their range of motion or their flexibility. We improve their strength and balance. It's multifactorial. You can't just do one without the other, although we are going to be focusing on one component of that today, which is the flexibility or movement component. But I want people to keep in mind, as I am talking quite specifically about flexibility and movement today, it's not a standalone entity that should be done on its own. It needs to be combined with the decreasing the inflammation, improving the strength, improving the proprioception, all those things around whatever we're working on. Although today we're going to be focusing on the flexibility part of things.
I want to give you a testimony before we go any further. I was having trouble with leg cramps, and you gave me a series of stretches and exercises to do. You gave me videos to watch, so I learned how to do them. I've seen marked results. I'm not having the leg cramps nearly as much. I feel a lot better. So that's an example of your expertise and guidance, and you made it so easy for someone dumb like me to figure out how to do it. And
and sometimes it's just a conversation I need to have with an individual like yourself or a patient that comes in my door to help identify what the problem is. And like you said, whenever someone comes into our clinic, we send them with exercises to do. So on their first visit, you're going to come to see me for an evaluation, but I'm going to send you home with exercises to do. And we actually have a new program that allows me to give you something in, it's typed out, it's printed, but also you get something in video format. So you get a text in your email. It allows you to open up and utilize this new app that we're using to see your actual exercise in a video format, which makes a huge difference. If you've gone to PT in the past, your PT is probably giving you a piece of paper to look at. They might have even scribbled down the exercise or, kind of a stick figure picture of what to do. But these videos that we utilize now for your exercises really help the patient with the understanding of what the exercise is supposed to look like, how it's properly done. It really enhances the communication, really takes away the likelihood of them doing it wrong. But watching that video and using that new program that we have has really been helpful. And we just started with this new program about a month, 6 weeks ago. So patients have really liked it using the new app that we have working at MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy. But
if an airhead like me could figure it out very easily, trust me, listeners, you'll be able to figure it out too.
Yeah. So a reminder, if you're just listening in, that's great. We appreciate you listening in. But if you can go to your Facebook feed and check us out on the Facebook, that's going to give you a lot of bang bang for your buck, because watching what I do and what I'm going to do with Scott as my demonstration model today really helps to enhance the learning of what you're going to learn about today with us talking about flexibility and movement and stretching and things like that. So if you happen to be driving and you just can't get to your computer right now, that's fine. It is recorded, and it shows up on our Facebook page as a recorded on both MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy. Also shows up on WBVP's Facebook feed, and then you also save it on your YouTube site, correct?
Yes.
So so that never goes away. You can always check out the WBVP YouTube site. So say a month down the road, you're like, oh, I want to watch that flexibility demo that Dale did from MRS Physical Therapy with Scott, and it'll always be there for you to watch. So the visual is it gives you an extra impact. But if you're just listening in, we'll do the best that we can today to describe what's going on and what we're doing here and what we're talking about. So like I said, we're just talking about the flexibility component of what you might come to see me for in physical therapy today. Although, there's the strengthening component that's very important, the decreased inflammation that's very important. We're just going to be focusing on the flexibility component of things today. So there's a lot of new research that's come out, and that's what I'm presenting to you guys today. This research just came out in 2025. So this is cutting edge stuff. Some of it is debunking old myths. Some of it's giving us new information that we never knew before. But when we talk about exercise, flexibility is one of those components of exercise. I always like to talk about dosage of exercise, because that's one of the new informational things that we have now that just came out in 2025. What does dosage look like for stretching and flexibility? And then people are like, well, what do you mean by dosage? Well, if you go to the doctors, and they give you a certain amount of medication, they give you it based on what they know research-based is going to help you. So, for example, if I have a patient, or if a patient goes to urgent care and they're dizzy, they have vertigo, the urgent care might give them a medication called meclizine. Well, how much meclizine do you think they give them? Do they give them 250 milligrams, 500, 750, 1,000, 2,000? Scott, how much do you think they give them?
I think it would depend on the person's weight, would be one of the factors.
It depends on a lot of factors, right? But that's scientifically based. So they're not just guessing, but a lot of things that we've done in the past with stretching and flexibility, if you're just doing it on your home, it's kind of guessing, right? How long do you stretch for? How many repetitions do you do? What's the duration? Do you do it for 30 seconds? Do you do it for 5 minutes? Do you do it for a half an hour? Do you do it once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day? Do you do it 3 times a week? Do you do it 7 times a week? A lot of that in the past has just been kind of like, what our gym teacher taught us, right? So our gym teacher taught us, you and I, Scott, in the 1970s and 80s,
yeah.
We were taught certain things, but a lot of those things have been debunked. But as recently as in the 90s, 2000s, and the 20 teens, there have been a lot of things out there that we thought were correct that have now been debunked. And we're going to break that down today. We're going to kind of unfold, what is the current research showing us for what we need to do and know about flexibility and strength. So like I used with that, that vertigo with the meclizine, honestly, you don't even need to take meclizine at all. So if you're at home and you have vertigo and your doctor has you on meclizine every day, you should really come to see me, because I can fix that vertigo. You don't need the meclizine. And just like flexibility and stretching, there's actually some stretching that we don't even need to do that we thought we needed to do. But now research is showing, it doesn't make a difference if you do it or not. It might not hurt you, but it's probably not going to help you either. So, we all have, our time is valuable to us. So there's no reason to spend our time working on certain things that really aren't making a difference for our flexibility. And so we're going to break that down and unfold that today as well. But the first thing we really need to do is talk about what is flexibility? What is motion? Okay. So, I had a student yesterday, and she asked me, what's the difference between mobility and flexibility? I'm like, actually, that's going to be my radio show tomorrow. What I'm going to talk about, the difference between mobility. This is a high school student. I was like, that's a great question. So I got to, give my radio spiel to her and kind of practice it a little bit with her. But there is a difference between what is mobility and what is flexibility. And a lot of these terms I'm going to break down here and just going to take a couple minutes focusing on it. But it's important that the listeners understand. So mobility is your body's ability to move through its full range of motion. So for example, the mobility of my neck, I'm going to turn it to the left. I'm going to turn it to the right. Okay, that's the mobility of my neck. Okay, that's my body's ability to go through a joint's full range of motion. And what I just showed you is my head turned to the left and turned to the right. I have full mobility there. I didn't have any limitations. I brought my chin to my left shoulder. I brought my chin to my right shoulder. So if you try this at home and you turn your head to the left and you turn it to the right, and you don't get quite all the way to your shoulder, then you have limited mobility. Okay, and then we're going to talk about breaking down, well, why do you have limited mobility? Well, one of those things is because you have a decrease in your flexibility. That's not necessarily the only reason, but that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So you might have a decrease in your flexibility. So your mobility is the normal ability to move through that full motion. So what your flexibility is your normal extensibility of the muscle. Your muscle's ability to go through its full motion is your flexibility of a muscle. So as I turn my head left to right, my muscles have full flexibility or extensibility, the muscle's ability to extend through its full endpoints. It's a fixed endpoint, point A to point B. It's able to go through that full endpoint, turning my head left to right. So my muscles in my neck have good muscle extensibility and or flexibility. They're able to turn left to right. So the extensibility is not limited at all. Okay. So good extensibility of your muscle means you have good flexibility, and it allows you to have the normal motion, because that's really our goal, the normal motion with whatever it is. So if you're, if you're an athlete, you want a normal motion of all your muscles. Okay. If you're an everyday, whatever, sitting at home or, like to walk or play pickleball, you want normal motion. So you're not limited, because when you're limited, that increases the likelihood of injury. That's why we focus and talk so much about flexibility, right? Because we don't want to get injured, because if we push our muscles past that point of no return, then that's what leads to injury. And if we don't have good muscle extensibility, that can increase our likelihood of injury. So muscle's extensibility is the ability of the muscle to extend to that predetermined end joint, which we talked about. And then you also have muscle stiffness involved. So muscle stiffness is the resistance that you feel. Okay. So if you turned your head left to right and you felt some resistance, you probably didn't feel it till you got to the end point, right? So if you're limited, you didn't feel that muscle resistance or that muscle stiffness till you got to that end point. So that muscle stiffness is what you feel as you get towards that end point when you don't have normal muscle extensibility or flexibility. And that's what we're really working on. So when you have someone that has decreased flexibility, it's really the extensibility or the muscle stiffness that's going on. And that's what we're trying to affect through doing our stretches. Okay. So, and this applies to every joint in the body, obviously. I'm just using the neck range of motion as a good starting example. So static stretching plus changing your stretch tolerance is what's going to help reduce your muscle stiffness, improve your muscle flexibility. So the new term that I just threw in there is stretch tolerance. That's the new term that's been thrown around in the newest research, because that's become a new identifiable awareness of something that we have, that's actually what we're working on, is your stretch tolerance when we're improving your flexibility. Okay. So your stretch tolerance is your sensory feedback, your body's sensory feedback about as far as how far you can go. Okay. So stretch tolerance is actually affecting your pain receptors and what's called your stretch reflex. Okay. So we have a stretch reflex. It's kind of like, it's not exactly this, but when you go to the doctor's office, you have the hammer that hits your knee, and your knee jumps out. That's a body reflex. So you can't resist it, right? It's just there. It happens to you. You have a lot, you have a little bit, some more reflexes than other. But your muscles have a stretch reflex in a very similar way, where it only allows you to go so far. And then you get discomfort and pain. So those pain receptors are telling you, I don't want to go any farther than this because it's uncomfortable for me. And the new research is showing us that when we work on our flexibility, we are actually changing the stretch tolerance in our muscles. We're not changing things mechanically. We're not making the muscle longer, okay? And a lot of us think about that. I'm going to stretch my hamstrings out because they're tight, they're short, I need to lengthen them. Well, that's not really the case. Your muscle might be 17 inches from point A to point B, but when you're working on the flexibility, you're not making that point A to point B longer, okay? That's 17 inches is that 17 inches, unless you have a muscle tear or a rupture, which happens, then something's broken, right? And we don't want that. So when you work on your muscle flexibility or your extensibility, you're actually working on improving that stretch tolerance by decreasing at what point you get pain and decreasing at what point you get that stretch reflex kicking in. Okay, so we're working on actually the muscle extensibility by decreasing the muscle stiffness by changing the sensory feedback at what point we feel that. That's what's really happening with flexibility. And that is the newest research that's out there. Breaking news, Beaver County and Butler County. This is 2025 research that just happened like November of last year it came out. So this is brand new updated stuff. And just to throw a little plug in, we're pretty proud of what we do at MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy, because we stay on top of the research. We keep ahead of the game. We know what's evidence-based and what's not evidence-based. So, I went to school in the 80s. I don't practice the way I learned in the 80s. I've evolved over that time because new stuff comes out. The way I treat and teach my vertigo patients, that's completely different because new evidence came out in the 90s. A lot of it came out in the 90s, and then more came out in the 2000s. Same thing was how we treat concussions. So as new things come out, we stay on top of the latest research, and we're just doing evidence-based practice. So you know when you come to see us at MRS Physical Therapy, you're not going to get the same thing that was done in the 80s and the 90s. You're going to get the most cutting-edge stuff to know that we're on top of what evidence is showing us now. And this is the latest thing with stretching and flexibility. And we're going to talk about this, and when we do the demo with you, Scott, I'm going to show you exactly what a flexibility program should look like for your warm-up and for your cool-down, because there's a lot of interesting new things that we're doing now that we weren't doing when we did our gym classes in the 70s and the 80s. So if you go to a PT that's still, I'm an older PT. So if you go to an older PT like me that's still practicing in the 70s and 80s, you're not going to be getting the best bang for your buck. You need to be going to an older PT like me that has the experience, but is also kept up on the research and the most evidence-based stuff that we're talking about here.
Makes sense.
So what actually happens when you stretch is you have a certain amount of slack in the muscle, and you're extending that slack till you hit that end point. Okay. And then we're doing a couple different things to help out and improve that. One is the improving the sensory feedback. Okay. So doing static stretching, dynamic stretching, PNF, which is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation stretching. And we're going to demonstrate all three of those types of stretches today. They all have a place. Okay. So probably as recently as about 10 years ago, people started to kind of say static stretching, that's not what you want to do. Dynamic is the thing. We all should be dynamic stretching. Now, we are onto something that we should all be doing dynamic stretching. That was the right direction. What was not the right direction is leaving static stretching behind and giving up on static stretching, because static stretching still has a place in improving our flexibility. But the importance, what we've learned recently, is the dosage of static stretching. Just like a dosage of medication, you have to be doing the right amount. For your medication, if you take too little medication, it's not going to help you at all. If you do too much, that's going to have bad side effects as well, right? So your doctor prescribes the right amount of medication that's going to get you better without having side effects and actually making improvements. Exercise, stretching, flexibility, exactly the same. The dosage is really important. And we've known this as physical therapists for a long time. I've been talking about exercise dosage for 20 years, but the research just hasn't been there. But now we have specific research that we can go back to and say, this is the new dosage recommendations for flexibility and stretching. And that's what we're going to teach you guys today. And that's what we're going to teach you, Scott, today as well.
I'm curious already, the dosage, is it going to be the number of reps you do of a stretch or how long you actually hold the stretch?
Yes. All the above, right? So your doctor gives you the right medication. The doctor tells you how much to take, 250 milligrams. The doctor tells you the frequency and duration. Take this 250 milligrams twice a day for a week. If someone has ever done a steroid dose pack, that's exactly what that is. You have a steroid dose pack. You take 7 pills on day 1, 6 pills on day 2, and it goes down through a 7-day or a 10-day, whatever, is steroid dose pack. Because research has shown that steroid dose pack helps you over the course of time, and we start out heavy and we slowly over time decrease it. Not exactly the same analogy because it's not the exact same dosage format, but stretching and exercise and flexibility is the same thing. Okay. So we have the right exercises to do. That's the right medication. Okay. We have, and sometimes you don't even want to do the static stretching. We're going to talk about when that is not appropriate to do, when you don't want to do it. So we have the right exercises to do. That could be the static stretch and the dynamic stretch and the PNF stretching. We have the how long to hold it for. Okay, that's the 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 4 minutes. That's like your 250 milligram dosage. And then we have the frequency. Okay, you're to take this medication twice a day for 7 days, or you're to do the stretching, once a day for 30 seconds, or twice a day, or 3 times a day for 60 seconds. And some things are just prior to an activity. Some things are to be done every day, depending on what your goals are. So when you come to me as a patient, we're going to say, well, what are your goals? Okay, well, I'm a runner, and I want to know what to do before my race. Because before my race, I want to make sure my body is prepared for that race. Or I'm a runner and my hamstrings always feel tight, and I need long-term improvement on that hamstring flexibility to make sure my stride length's longer, to get my my best time, kind of thing. So we talk about those goals with our patient because we need to identify that first. Is it an acute goal where I need to know what to do right before a race, or is it a chronic goal that I know my hamstrings are tight and I chronically have problems with them? I need to know how to treat this, for my lifetime. So that's what we're going to break down today when we talk about, dosage with stretching and flexibility.
Yeah, you want to do a quick break and come back, get all set up?
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right. Well, more Dale Reckless from MRS Physical Therapy.
No matter what the circumstances, no matter the reason, one of the few things that is left when a loved one passes on are the memories. Staging those memories in an honoring way is one of the reasons so many people have chosen J&J Spratt Funeral Home. A person's legacy depends on a lifetime of accomplishments and then how they are remembered. J&J Spratt Funeral Home has helped start the process of creating positive legacies for over 70 years. Visit jjsprattfh.com. Joseph M. Spratt, Supervisor and Funeral Director.
Hey McDonald's lovers, make way for the Big Arch. It's got 2 juicy 100% fresh beef patties, white cheddar cheese, onions, pickles, shredded lettuce, and creamy arch sauce, all on a toasted poppy and sesame seed bun. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
Put freedom in your future. Freedom United Federal Credit Union in Rochester.
If you own a company or a small business, you might have considered advertising on radio. It's smart because radio is still the most far-reaching media outlet today. WBVP and WMBA can get you results. Get more information at beavercountyradio.com.
Remember way back when you were young and the bus ride to and from school set the tone for what made your day special? School buses and vans have had a special place in the Fry family for 3 generations. At Fry Transportation, the student transportation industry is embraced as a tradition, privilege, and lifestyle. From the morning laughs on the way to school to the talk about the day on the way home. Memories you won't forget, just like the vintage football games aired each week on Beaver County Radio. Fry Transportation, caring for your children as they care for their own. Coming at you from the Fry Transportation Group studios, Scott Tatey here, joined by Dale Reckless of MRS Physical Therapy, the award-winning MRS Physical Therapy. We're talking about flexibility and dosage, and go ahead. You're making some very good points here about the modern research.
What we're talking about is flexibility, which, as just a recap, flexibility is the extensibility of your muscle. When we actually work on flexibility, we're trying to decrease your muscle stiffness. And the new research has shown that we're decreasing muscle stiffness and improving the muscle extensibility through improving your stretch tolerance. Stretch tolerance is actually a sensory feedback. When we improve your flexibility and your extensibility, we're actually decreasing your pain or improving your pain tolerance to how far we can stretch and decreasing at what point the stretch reflex happens. So we're not actually changing the length of your muscle when we work on flexibility. We are improving the extensibility by decreasing the muscle stiffness through improving your stretch tolerance through things like static stretching, dynamic stretching, PNF, which is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. It's a specific type of stretching that we do. And then some what we call modalities, which we're going to demonstrate, like foam rolling, which we have here, using vibration with a massage gun, and doing something called scraping. Scraping is, it sounds a lot worse than it is. It's not like scraping the ice off your car like I had to this morning, but it's really wakening the muscles up. And so what we're doing with this improving the sensory tolerance is we are affecting the central nervous system. So the way we're affecting the central nervous system is we're retraining the central nervous system to decrease its pain tolerance or improve its pain tolerance and decrease the stretch reflex, which allows us to improve muscle extensibility, allows us to decrease muscle stiffness, and the CNS responds really well to things like the foam rolling, the vibration, the scraping, in addition to the dynamic, static, and the PNF stretching. So it's really like it's a change in us understanding how improving flexibility works, but it also, by improving our understanding, helps us to pinpoint what's valuable and what's maybe not so valuable, and what to work on when we work on flexibility. So a little bit later on today, we're going to demo Scott what a good warm-up looks like and what a good cool-down looks like when it incorporates static stretching, dynamic stretching, foam rolling, vibration, scraping. All these things are important things. And think about it. When you do an exercise and you're warming up, say if you're a pickleball player, you just don't go out and play pickleball, right? That's going to lead for disaster. You're going to end up in that urgent care doctor's office, end up in my clinic before you need to, because you don't warm up the muscles. So really all this is about is warming up and preparing the muscles. And actually heat's one of those things that helps out as well. So if you have ability to warm up the muscles through heat, that's great too. But usually just a good warm up, like a cardiovascular warm up for 5 to 10 minutes does the job. But we're trying to warm up the muscle. We're trying to wake up the muscle. We're going to get the muscle prepared for the activity that we're going to ask it to do. Okay. So if you're a runner, you know that you just don't go out and get out of your car, go to the starting line and run your race. You're going to, number one, you're not going to have a good race. You could possibly get injured, but you're not going to be doing your best. So a lot of this is about what actually helps to improve muscle performance and what actually does not help to improve muscle performance as well. And that's one of the things that happened in the last 10, 15 years is that we were led to believe that static stretching was actually bad for us. Static stretching would actually decrease our muscle performance. And that's been debunked. Okay. We now know that static stretching is not a problem. It's the length of time that we statically stretch that could lead to decreased muscle performance. So we're going to use this as an example for dosage, which we've been talking a lot about with dosage for exercises. As an example for static stretching, if you are about to run your race, you should not static stretch a muscle group for more than 60 seconds. Okay. If you're going to statically stretch, it should be less than 60 seconds. So for example, you stretch your hamstrings. A lot of us know how to stretch our hamstrings. If you're about to run a race, your stretch for that hamstrings should be less than 60 seconds. Okay.
Is that 60 straight seconds? Or if I stretch my left leg for 30, then my right, then go back to my left?
You led me right into what I was going to say next, Scott. You're reading my notes apparently. So that means you're doing a 30-second hold twice. Okay. And that's for one muscle group. That doesn't mean your whole body for 60 seconds. That means if I'm going to do my hamstrings, I'm going to stretch my hamstrings 30 seconds twice, my left hamstring. I'm going to stretch my right hamstring 30 seconds twice. Okay. That gets us our 60 seconds. If we start stretching more than 60 seconds on a specific muscle group, then that can decrease our muscle performance. So we kind of got mixed up the last 15, 20 years, what static stretching was and was not good for and bad for. That we kind of dropped it all together, like static stretching is bad. Well, now we realize it's not bad. It's only bad if we do it for the wrong duration. Okay, so our dosage was off. That's all it was. The medicine's still good, just our dosage was off. So don't forget about the medicine. It's just the dosage was off. We correct the dosage. It's a great medicine, right? So static stretching for your hamstrings, 30 seconds twice for your left end or right leg prior to race. That's great. That's no problem. It's not going to decrease your muscle performance. It's not going to hurt your race time. But in combination, that's not all we do. Okay. It needs to be a multifactorial. It needs to be a combination of things. So we don't just static stretch our hamstrings and say, okay, I'm good to go now. And that was kind of a problem in the 80s. You know, we thought, we just need to statically stretch. When I ran cross country, static stretch. All we did is static stretch. This, all the muscle groups, static stretch, spent about 15, 20 minutes static stretching. We learned that wasn't the right way either. We need to combine it with dynamic stretching, possibly some PNF, which is we're going to demonstrate today what PNF looks like, with some mobility specific activities, vibration, foam rolling, scraping. All those things are important components of a good warm up to get your muscles ready, especially for high performance athletes. Now, some of us, may or may not have the tools to do all that, but if you don't have all the tools, that's okay. But you're going to do the static stretching and you're going to do the dynamic stretching combined. That's going to get your best outcome to improve your muscle extensibility, your muscle flexibility. And that dosage is important too. We're going to talk about that. Acutely, 30 seconds twice for each muscle group. Okay. Right. If you're chronically working on something, so if you're the person that comes in my office and say, my hamstrings are always tight, my back is always killing me because my hamstrings are always tight. What do I need to do? Chronically, you need to stretch more than 60 seconds. Okay. So if you are addressing your chronic issues with static stretching, but you're using the shorter duration dosage, that's not going to help you. You have to be using the longer duration dosage. Same medication, but the dosage is now changed depending on what your goals are. Okay. We're still doing the static stretching, but if your goal is just to do it before your race, that's your 30 seconds twice. If your goal is to improve your muscle extensibility in your hamstrings for long-term chronic, because you have low back problems, you need to be doing that 2 to 3 times a day. Okay. So now your frequency and duration is changed every day, not just before a race, but every single day, 2 to 3 times a day. And I've talked about this before. I stretch my hamstrings twice a day, every day, before I get out of bed in the morning, before I go to bed at night, because my muscles and my hamstrings are always stiff. They always have that stiffness. Okay. And your body just goes back to that if you don't work on it. So I have to work on it every day. I work on it every day, twice a day, every day of the week. And if I don't get to it, if I forget, for some reason, if I'm traveling or something like that, then my back tells me. My back, wakes up and say, "Hey, Dale, you didn't stretch your hamstrings. You're having back pain all of a sudden." I know why, because I skipped a day. Okay, I skipped my dosage, and you can't skip a dosage. Just like your medication, your doctor tells you do not skip a dosage. Right? If you skip a dosage, your body's gonna go back, revert to what the problem was. Just like your flexibility, if you skip a dosage, your body's gonna revert back to that stiffness again, that loss of extensibility, that loss of stiffness. If you're having a chronic issue, you have to be stretching at least 60 seconds, 5 to 10 minutes total for your overall muscle groups if you're having issues. Now, this is a lot of information. I understand it. It's a lot of information. We're the experts, okay? If you need more information, then come to see me, schedule an evaluation, and I will review what your goals are. I will review what areas of muscles that we need to work on, and I will give you the guidelines for what your program should look at, what your warm-up should look like, what your cool down should look like, what things you should be doing based on areas that you have increased muscle stiffness, decreased flexibility, meaning you don't have the full motion that you should have. Okay? So, let's see here where we're going to go next. So things that to pay attention to with flexibility. Flexibility is not always the go-to. Okay, so people that have loss of we'll talk about this first. So loss of flexibility are things like tech neck. You've heard about that over the years. Tech neck gets developed over the course of time. So you're looking at your phone, you're looking down like this. You're holding a position for long periods of time. Okay, so what happens when you hold periods for long periods of time is you decrease your neuromuscular function because you are losing flexibility if you're holding this position for hours a day. So maybe at your job, looking down at your phone, your laptop, your computer. We've talked about that, and I feel like ad nauseum for decades about, computer setup and ergonomics and things like that, which we can help you set up your desk ergonomically if you're having problems with that. But what happens over the course of time is you have poor posture. You start to develop muscle imbalances. You develop weaknesses in some muscles, tightness in some muscles, and that decreases your neuromuscular ability to move. And we've now lost mobility. You develop tech neck, you have pain in the neck, you've lost mobility because you've developed muscle imbalances and muscle tightness. That's one reason to come see us, to work on your muscle flexibility or extensibility or stiffness, whatever we want to call it at this point in time. But there aren't always times that you need to work on flexibility, and that's if someone comes into my office with hypermobility. And I like to talk about this because I don't feel like it's talked about enough. There's people out there that have too much mobility. Okay, there's a diagnosis called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's called EDS, and these patients have hypermobility. They have too much motion in joints. These are not patients that should be coming in and stretching, but I see this all the time. Everybody thinks that everybody needs to stretch. Well, that's not the case. People with hypermobility do not need to work on flexibility. They need to work on stabilization exercises. So if you're having pain, I'm going to evaluate you first to see if you are hypermobile, which means you have too much motion, which happens, or you have too little motion, which is hypomobile. Now, most of us are hypomobile where we have lost motion, but there are plenty of hypermobile people out there. So I like to throw a shout out to that group of people, because too many times I have people come in, their shoulders are subluxing all the time, and I do my what's called a Beighton or Beighton score test, where I look at their overall mobility. Okay. And it's something as simple as putting your arm out. And if you're just listening, I have my arm out extended and my wrist is now flexed. I'm trying to pull my thumb back down to my wrist. I can't do it. Okay. Because that's normal mobility. If you can do that motion and bring your thumb all the way back to your wrist, that's one signal of hypermobility. Now, if you put your arm out in front of you with your palm up and you try to pull your pinky down and your pinky goes past 90 degrees or a right angle, that's another sign of hypermobility. Now, just one of these tests doesn't put you in the hypermobility category, but if all of these tests put you there, then you are a hypermobile person. You might just have hypermobility in one joint or something like that. That's possible too. The second one is hyperextending your elbows. People think about that as double jointed. So people that are double jointed, when they straighten out their elbow with their arm straight out in front of them, their elbow pops up. Their wrist pops down below their elbow. That's a hypermobility. In my example is I'm not hypermobile in my elbow. The real kicker, this one's pretty common. This one's probably most common with my hypermobile patients. And if I were to do one test to test out hypermobility, this would be it. When you're standing up with your knees extended, if you can reach down and palm the floor with your hands, that's a good sign that you have hypermobility issues and that I should probably do the rest of these tests on you. So if you can do that when standing with your knees locked out straight, reach down and palm the floor with your hands, I had a patient yesterday. She could put her hands all the way between her legs and underneath and behind her. That was like red light. There's hypermobility going on here for low back problems. That's a person that I'm not going to be saying, hey, we need to stretch. We need to work on flexibility. That's a person, hey, we need to work on stability. We need to work on stabilizing the joint because you have too much motion, and that's going to put a lot of extra stress on your tendons and ligaments and muscles. So that's just kind of a side caveat as far as when we talk about precautions with stretching and flexibility. Other times we might not want to work on certain stretches or flexibilities if you had a recent trauma, a surgery, where the joint's not supposed to go through that motion quite yet because the tissues are still healing inside. We need to work on those a little bit more. Those are times you might not, or you need a professional like me to make sure you're working on the right way to stretch and flexibility. So we talked briefly about static stretching. Dynamic stretching is just going through the motions. We're going to demonstrate that in a little bit. What a dynamic stretch looks like. So you're actually actively moving the arms, the legs through your motion, whether it's swinging your arms back and forth if you're working on something. So you actually have a tempo to it. There's a velocity to it. This is another interesting caveat that came out in the new research. It doesn't matter what your tempo is. You can do it slowly. You can do it at a medium. You can do it fast. Does not matter. So you see some people warming up in the pickleball and they're like really going at it. They're swinging, flailing their arms around. That's probably more likely to hurt them than help them. That velocity that tempo of how you do it has no bearing on it, your flexibility and preparing your body. You could do it really fast and violently. You can do it kind of slow. You can do it medium pace. The new research shows that tempo doesn't matter. Okay. So another little side caveat there. But then the PNF stretching is very interesting. The PNF stretching should really be done by a professional because they know how to identify what the angle of the muscle is. And it's also really hard to do on yourself because it's you go through the full motion and then the person that's helping you has you do what's called an isometric contraction where they're just holding that muscle in place, and then we do another additional stretch over top of that. So when we do Scott the demo, I'm going to demonstrate to the audience what a PNF stretch looks like. But basically, I put you through a stretch, then I have you push against me and hold that for a couple seconds. And then I re-stretch. And that PNF is really what helps to decrease muscle stiffness and helps improve extensibility of the muscle, which is meeting our goal, which is improving the flexibility to allow us to get full movement. Because that's the ultimate goal. Full mobility and full movement is the ultimate goal. If you have too much movement, that changes our goals a little bit, but most of us have too little movement, and so we need to work on improving the extensibility of the muscle by improving the sensory tolerance, by decreasing the pain levels and the stretch reflex and improving all that. It's really a sensory feedback loop. Like I said earlier in the show, it's more of a sensory feedback loop that we're improving because we're not changing the length of the muscle. The muscle is what it is. It's point A to point B. It's attached here. It's attached here. But the extensibility, the stiffness is what's changed. And through the sensory, improving the sensory tolerance, that is what we're making a difference with when we do these new patterns.
Okay.
You want to take a little break, then we'll get you set up and we'll do our demo?
Yeah, I'm ready to jump on the table. Yes, let's do it. Hold tight.
Beaver County Radio's news source. 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, and BeaverCountyRadio.com. Here's Noah Haswell.
Good morning on this Wednesday, March 18th.
No, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna squeeze in with the rest of what Dale's doing here. So we'll get to the news at 10 o'clock. How about that?
When the weather turns bad, you can now do two things. First, tune into Beaver County Radio for the latest cancellation announcements, and second, go to BeaverCountyRadio.com and access our closings and delays widget that is active anytime there are weather-related events. If snow's got you covered, so do we at Beaver County Radio, Beaver County Radio social media, and BeaverCountyRadio.com. Snow Watch is presented by Moon Township Honda, McClellan's Roofing, and Beaver County Radio.
The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series.
Field comes out of turn number 14. Green flag is waving.
Heads to South Carolina.
Further back in turn one truck goes for a spin. Justin Haley is facing the wrong direction.
For a trip around Darlington Raceway.
Black and white checker flag waving at the start-finish line, and Lane Riggs will win.
It's the Buckle Up South Carolina 200.
Can tuning into a radio show really change your life? It can when you listen to Beaver County Radio in the 9 o'clock hour, the third Tuesday of every month. Tom Young from First Consultants in Beaver will be the special guest expert and talk about how managing and thinking about the money you already have can potentially create financial freedom for many of you. You can also watch the live video stream of the show on the WBVP WMBA Facebook page. It's time I get on the table. I'm here with Dale Reckless, MRS Physical Therapy. We're going to do some demonstrations for you. Remember, these are streaming on our Facebook page and later on our YouTube page as well as on MRS Physical Therapy's page. But it's a great way to see exactly what he's talking about. So let's get to it.
Okay, so just a quick recap. What we're talking about is flexibility and how we improve someone's flexibility. So Scott's a very gracious demo model for me here. I should have brought my pillows. Yeah, it's some comfort level there. Sorry about that. So what we're talking about is if you are looking at your flexibility, how do we change flexibility? There's actually some new research out there that helps us to understand better how we're improving flexibility by improving the extensibility and decreasing the muscle stiffness. Okay, and that's actually working through a sensory feedback tolerance. We're not actually lengthening the muscle. We're not making the muscle any longer, but we're actually changing the sensation, and we're changing the sensation by we're affecting the sensory tolerance. Your sensory tolerance is at what point you feel pain when you do a stretch, and at what point you get a stretch reflex that kicks in. Okay, so we're changing that sensory tolerance in how we do the stretching. Static stretching, dynamic stretching, and PNF. These are all valid things that are important. Okay, so if you're going to be looking at this as how you do your warm up, that's what we're going to really talk about. This is how a warm up should look. So a warm up does not start lying down doing a static stretch, but Scott's already in position, so that's fine. A warm up is actually doing a cardiovascular warm-up, which we weren't going to have Scott do anyway. So a cardiovascular warm-up is 5 to 10 minutes of activity. That could be riding a bike. That could be, a fast-paced walk, a brisk walk. Could be a light jog. But that's your warm-up. You need a cardiovascular warm-up because what we do is we're increasing the vascularity of the muscles, warming up the muscles, if you will. So we're actually physically warming up the muscles through a cardiovascular warm-up, getting the blood flow to increase to the muscles that we're going to be working on. And then after that, we jump into our static stretching. Remember, dosage is important. We're not doing it for too long. And then we're doing some PNF stretching, which shows it's really effective for decreasing muscle stiffness and improving muscle extensibility. And then we're going to be doing some dynamic stretching. So Scott will be on and off the table a little bit, but I'm going to show you exactly the pattern that you should be using to safely work on flexibility and improve extensibility of muscles. So like I said, it starts with that 5 to 10 minutes of that cardiovascular warm-up, which we're not going to do here. We don't have time for it, and we don't have a bicycle here as well. And Scott doesn't really want to have to run in place for 10 minutes in front of, for good radio. That would not be good radio, Scott, running in place for 10 minutes. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a static stretch. Now, and we're talking about the hamstrings today because I'll tell you what, so many of my patients have hamstring issues. It's probably the number one thing I'm working on is hamstring issues. Hamstrings just tend to be tight on people. Probably because we're sitting most of our day. As we have evolved over time, most of our jobs have been sitting more than being active. So our muscles get tight from sitting most of our day. So hamstrings have become tight. I believe that's the reason why. So we're going to work on a static hamstring stretch. Now remember, dosage is key. Okay. The right medication is the static hamstring stretch. The right dosage is how long we hold it for. And the right frequency and duration is if Scott's like, I want to know how to prepare for my run, I'm going to show him how to prepare for his run. That's what we're working on. This is an acute warm-up. Okay. The acute warm-up, getting ready before a race, if you will. This is not Scott coming in and saying, I'm going to work on my hamstrings because they're tight every day, because that changes the dosage. Okay, it changes how long he's going to hold it for. So because we're doing, Scott wants to get ready before his pickleball game. This is the warm up. So we did a 5 to 10 minute warm up, just a quick, brisk walk around the park at pickleball, and then we're going to do a static stretch. So the static stretch, static hamstring stretch, I'm going to show you real quick here. Okay, let's bring this leg up for me. Okay, so a static stretch is me just holding. Scott can do this on his own, but I'm going to show you how I would statically stretch one of my patients. And remember, dosage is key. 30 seconds, twice on the right leg, twice on the left leg. If I start to go more than that, then it could actually affect his muscle performance. Okay, it actually make his pickleball game worse. So dosage is key. Just like taking too much medication. Dosage is key. Okay, so 30-second hold, I would do it twice in the right leg and twice in the left leg. That's a static stretch. He's warmed up the muscles, okay? This isn't cold. He's warmed them up for 5 to 10 minutes. He's already increased the blood flow to the area. Then we're going to do the static stretch. Next, we're going to do what's called the PNF stretch, okay? PNF stretch is different than the static stretch because it incorporates a muscle contraction in addition to the stretch. And this is actually scientifically evidence-based proven to help improve muscle extensibility, decreasing muscle stiffness. So I go to the end point of how far his hamstring muscle goes, which is right about there. Then I'm going to say, Scott, push down into my hand here. Push and hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then relax. And then I go back and I try to get a little bit more motion there. Okay, this is called PNF. It's contract, relax, where I hold that position. I take it down a little bit, have him push down and contract that muscle, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then he relaxes again, and then I get a little bit more motion there.
So more of the higher up on my leg.
Yeah, so that is very effective. You can relax there. That PNF is very effective for decreasing muscle stiffness, improving the extensibility of the muscle. Remember, we're not changing the length of the muscle. That doesn't happen. We're improving the extensibility of the muscle by decreasing muscle stiffness. So we started out with a static stretch, then we did a PNF stretch. Now we do some dynamic stretching. So we're going to have you hop off the table again. So Scott is now off the table, and we're going to teach him a dynamic stretch. So again, we're just going to focus on the hamstrings. Your dynamic stretching routine should take about 5 to 10 minutes. You want to spend a good amount of time on your dynamic stretching, which you see if you watch athletes warm up, they do plenty of dynamic stretching. Dynamic stretching became super popular the last 10, 20 years. Everybody knows how to dynamic stretch now. If you go to a high school volleyball game, for example, because my kids are in volleyball, you'll see them do all these dynamic stretches, and they're very valuable. So I'm not trying to decrease the value of the dynamic stretching. I'm just saying these other components are also super important and they're multifactorial. So a quick dynamic stretch for hamstrings is just high kicks. So Scott, start back here. So Scott's going to just do a couple high kicks walking across the station here, and he's just doing some high kicks, and it's dynamic. So he's walking, he's kicking up, and I'm just focusing on one muscle group because we're talking about the hamstrings. That's a good, easy, dynamic hamstring warm-up, but you should be spending 5 to 10 minutes on the dynamic warm-up. So you did a 5 to 10 minute cardiovascular warm-up. You spent about a minute doing the static stretching, right? You spend about another couple minutes doing the PNF, and you can teach yourself how to do some of the PNF patterns as well. I demonstrated with a partner. Partner's best. It's easier to do that way, but there's some ways you can do your own PNF, and then going into the dynamic stretching. Okay. Next, we're going to get back. Well, actually, let's talk about this real quick. So if you were a pickleball player, then you might do some movement prep next. So movement prep, you spend a couple minutes on this, is kind of putting yourself in the game without being in the game. So part of it's thinking about it. So part of it's mental. That's important. Put your visuals through the game. But then you also kind of go through your patterning. Okay, patterning is your movement prep and thinking about what you're going to be doing in the game. So you might do some side to side shuffle. You might be preparing left to right. So thinking about, having a paddle ball in your hand and just kind of going through, that's your movement prep. That's getting all the muscles that you utilize for what activity you're preparing for. Remember, what we're talking about is preparing for a very specific activity. So this is Scott preparing to play pickleball. He did a 5 to 10 minute warm up. He did about a 2-minute static stretch. He spent a couple minutes on the PNF stretching. He spent 5-7 minutes on the dynamic stretching. Then he does some movement prep. Okay, so he spent about 5-10 minutes on that movement prep, visualizing playing pickleball, kind of getting all of his muscles going, routine. So we are waking up the central nervous system. That's what this is all about: waking up the central nervous system, getting the central nervous system all this sensory information that the body needs to identify. My body's preparing to play pickleball. I'm not preparing to sit at my office. My body's preparing to play pickleball. So that's the next thing we incorporate is that movement prep. The next thing we're going to do are a couple things that we realize really help improve the sensory feedback. The first one's foam rolling. So Scott, we're going to get you back up on the table and actually have you face the camera.
This way?
Yep.
Okay.
So you can foam roll back up a little bit. You can stay sitting up. You can foam roll just about any muscle group. So we're going to show you the hamstring foam roll. So what you're going to do is you're going to push your legs down. This can be a little challenging if you haven't. Have you ever foam rolled before?
Never have.
Okay, so this can be a little challenging if you've never foam rolled before. But you're going to put your hands behind you, so you lift your butt up in the air, and then you're going to roll your body over top of you're going to roll your hamstrings over top of that. There you go, perfect. Okay, so this is called foam rolling. If you're not watching, Scott has a piece of foam, cylindrical, hard foam. It's not soft foam underneath his hamstrings, and he's rocking back and forth his hamstrings over top of that foam roll. So this foam rolling, think about it. Is this foam rolling making the muscles longer? No, it's giving him increased sensory feedback, okay? It's helping out improve the extensibility of the muscle by decreasing the muscle stiffness by giving him sensory feedback through that muscle to improve the muscle stiffness and improve the extensibility through that sensory feedback that we now know about, okay? So that's called foam rolling. So that's foam rolling the hamstrings.
Where do you get one of this?
Oh, you can get it Five Below. You can get these things anywhere. They're not expensive. Yeah. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is you're going to go under your stomach.
Face the camera?
You can keep your back. You can just roll. Yeah, keep your head down that way. That'll probably be better. Okay, so we also know, in addition to foam rolling, improving our sensory feedback, vibration helps out. And so I have this. It's called a Hypervolt Go. Sorry, it's a vibration gun. And it helps to, and you'll see a lot of these. These are not cheap. They're a little bit expensive. But you just kind of rub that over the muscle. It feels a little funny. Can tickle actually. It can hurt. But it's doing some vibration over that muscle. So right now I'm doing the vibration up and down Scott's hamstring here. It can be sensitive. It does have 3 different levels of vibration here. So I'm just rubbing that up and down. It's increasing again. I'm not changing the length of the muscle. I'm just waking the muscle up. That's sensory feedback.
Before a workout or after a workout?
Well, right now we're talking about before.
Okay.
We'll talk about the after as well because this does have a place for the after. Okay, and then stay exactly where you are. The next thing we can do is called scraping. So I have this tool here. If you're just listening, it's a plastic tool. Some of them are made of metal, some are made of plastic. So this is called scraping, and all I do is I just rub this up and down the muscle. Okay, like this. Now Scott's got jeans on, so it's not so good. But if you really want to do this against the bare skin, and you can use this tool here to kind of wake that muscle up. We're not changing the length of the muscle by making it longer from point A to point B. It's improving the sensory component of what is affecting his muscle stiffness and muscle extensibility by doing the scraping. And usually I'll do it up and down the length of the muscle. I can do it with I'll bend the knee. And then I'll straighten out the knee as I kind of scrape up like that. Again, jeans aren't the best thing to do it on, but you kind of get the idea if you're watching. So as I'm moving the joint through its range of motion, I can do some scraping, and that helps out with the muscle extensibility, muscle stiffness as well. Okay, so so we went through the foam rolling, spend about 30 seconds to a couple minutes on the foam rolling per muscle group. Again, dosage, the scraping, again, 30 seconds to a couple minutes for doing the scraping. And then the percussion, the vibration, 30 seconds to a couple minutes on that as well. And that's your warm-up. Now you're ready to play pickleball.
I do feel better. Everything, the combination of all that, I feel more limber.
So we talked about the cool down. Like, what do I do afterwards? Is this good for cool down as well? Absolutely. So for your cool down, you want to do, again, a cardiovascular cool down. So after you play pickleball, do a brisk walk, a light jog, ride the bike, whatever. Again, 5 to 10 minutes. Your cardiovascular warm up before the event and your cardiovascular cool down after the event are essentially the same. Okay. Your static stretch after you do your event changes. Okay. Your dosage changes. Instead of less than 60 seconds, it's now greater than 60 seconds. So if you want to work on static stretching after your event, then you want to do it for a longer dosage, more than 60 seconds. Because guess what? Your muscle performance doesn't matter anymore, right? Because you've already did your event. So remember, if you're worried about your muscle performance, it should be less than 60 seconds. So less than 60 seconds prior to your activity, playing pickleball, whatever. After the event, your event's done, then you can work on your static stretching for longer than 60-second time frame, and that's fine. Everything's longer for your cool down. So for your warm-ups, things should be less time. For your at your cool down, things can be longer times. So your foam rolling can be, for longer periods of time. Your scraping, longer periods of time. Your vibration, we call this percussion, the vibration, can be longer periods of time. So just think about this. For your warm-up, do it. Do all the activities. Do your cardiovascular warm-up, your static stretching, your dynamic stretching, your mobility, overall mobility. Do your scraping, do your vibration, do your foam rolling, but keep it short duration. For your cool down, same modalities, but do it longer duration. And that's going to help improve your overall flexibility and extensibility.
Okay, we're gonna have to do a part 2 of this. This is some good stuff, but we've run out of time.
That's crazy. Yeah, this is great. Well, there's so much new information out there.
I like that.
I worked on this a long time to try to get it down to a radio show time frame because there's so much new information out there. It's great. It's exciting. We're super excited at MRS Physical Therapy to deliver this to our patients. If you need us, MRS Physical Therapy in Bridgewater, we're right in Stone Point Landing. Give us a call at 724-728-7550. Our clinic in Cranberry is Cranberry Physical Therapy. It's on Route 19, right next to North Park Lounge, which will soon be Sensi's in the next couple of weeks, I guess. But that number is 724-591-8121. You can check out our website, mrsphysicaltherapy.com. Visit our Facebook pages, both at MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy. This has been recorded. You can go back and see that there, or you can check out WBVP's. They have it recorded there as well if you want to relook at it again, because this was a ton of information, and it's a lot to take in the first time you hear it. So it's definitely worthwhile going back and listening to it again. But if you want to give me a call or send me an email, d.reckless@mrsphysicaltherapy.com. Say, hey Dale, I heard your radio show, but I had a question about this. I answer emails. Email is probably the best way to get a hold of me. You can call as well. I'm usually with a client, so it takes me a while to get back. But email, I get back pretty quickly, and then it gives me time to get back to you at any time. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions through email. But check out our Facebook and come visit us. And keep in mind, we are voted the best out there by the community. So I believe we do a really good job, and we're really excited about our award gold medal as well. So thanks for having us here today, Scott.
Thank you, Dale. And yeah, like you said, go to Facebook. You can watch it again, and I look forward to having you back again next month.
Thank you.
You're listening